Ann. Alrighty, everyone. I have a special guest who was a news anchor. I discovered her on InfoWars, and she has quite a story to tell. So please, Melanie, if you'll introduce yourself, and we'll go along with the candid interview.
All right, thank you. I'm Melanie Standiford. Thanks for having me on your show.
Yeah. So what happened?
Well, I was working a lot, and I was had Friday off because I was planning on producing, anchoring, reporting for the weekend, so I could let one of my employees have the weekend off. And then I planned on following week doing some weather and some reporting and anchoring and producing and all the stuff that I do in a small newsroom. So I took Friday off, and I got a text message from my employer about 4 o'clock in the afternoon saying they had to make an unexpected trip to North Platte from Lincoln, which is about a 4-hour drive, and that they had something important to talk to me about. And so they needed me to meet them at 6. And so I told them I would. And I drove in basically to be told, then this is your last day with us, you can leave. So when I asked them why I was being fired, they told me that it was for practicing partisan politics. So there was an article that came out in the Flatwater, Freewater, I don't know, it's been a long week, a newspaper on the eastern side of Nebraska out of Omaha that was, it had a lot of mistakes in it, and I was misquoted, taken out of context, whatever, that article came out, but it is an article that was distributed all across Nebraska. And it's my understanding that when it came across the desk of my employer, who's Gray Media Television, the news director and the general manager are located in Lincoln, Nebraska. They saw that, and they said they had to make the decision then to fire me from my job and so what that was in my church in Curtis, Nebraska. It's a town of 600-700 people. I'm not entirely sure what the census says right now, but roughly that. I'm 50 years old, and I was born on an army base in Texas, but I lived there for a month, but for the rest of my life, I've lived in that area. And my family, I think I counted back on both sides, 8 generations are buried in that cemetery. Actually, that's counting my grandchildren back. So we've lived in that community. My 50 years, my dad's 70 years, his mother's and his father's, 70 years. We've lived there for a long time. And so everybody knows in that small community what I believe, how I feel, that I'm pro-life, that I'm, who I am. I have a large family. I have 13 children, 9 biological children. And we go to church there. We do everything. And in fact, I'd like to note that Curtis is not even in the viewing area of the market where I work. They don't get us because it's down in the hill. North Platte's pretty small. We're actually the smallest market in the nation. So I wasn't, making a big difference anyway, probably. But anyway, I was in Curtis and at my church at St. John's Lutheran. It's a Lutheran, Missouri Synod Lutheran church. I was sharing a petition for the pro-life to be placed on the ballot for the people in Curtis to decide if they wanted to make Curtis a sanctuary city for the unborn. Now, also, I'd like to note that Curtis is the Easter city of Nebraska. There are 3 large crosses overlooking the town. It didn't seem like it was, to me, it seemed like a no-brainer, but regardless, it was going on the ballot. Or the petition was to see if they wanted to put it on the ballot. And of course, everybody in the church, the pastor announced it, and the ballot sitting there on the table, and someone witnesses the signatures. Well, that has happened to be me. And so if you witness the signatures, then you're the one that has to take it to the notary. And so I did that. And that's why it's on record that I was circulating the petition. I did also share it with the Berean church, which is literally across the sidewalk from, across the road from our church. And those folks, know me also. It was not me standing on the street corners with signs behind me of pro-life saying, hey, vote like me, or this is what I'm doing. I'm circulating petitions. Now, I would like to clear one thing up. A lot of people are saying that I lied, that I'm saying I didn't report on this. I did not report on me being a part of the ballot of the petition. I had nothing. There's no indication Unless you were sitting in my church or in the Berean church or someone very close to me, you would not have known that I had any participation. And I'd also like to note, and tell me if I'm talking too much, but I'd also like to note that every article that I've done on abortion is still on the great media websites. So if you go to my station and you type in Standiford and abortion, it will pull up all the stories I've done. If they're so biased, if they're so clouded to try to sway people one way or another, why are they still on their websites? Why are they still on those news outlets? People in North Platte, they believe, I had somebody from the pro chain reach out to me and say, we thought you were pro-choice because you're always quoting the ACLU and Planned Parenthood and things. And I'm telling both sides of the story. I'm very fair and very balanced in my reporting. And something I thought about today that I hadn't thought about before, back in March, January through March, there were a lot of marches for pro-life, you know, the Roe versus Wade anniversary. They have the Chicago and the Washington, D.C. and Lincoln, Nebraska had one in the springtime as well. And I was at those. And my employer knew I was at those. And there was a march in Lincoln, Nebraska. I don't remember the date, but that time frame that I had reached out to my employer and said, hey, I took some pictures at this march. There were a lot of leaders there. There's a coach from the Cornhusker football team there. There's, you know, a lot of people talking. And I noticed a lot of the TV stations had reporters there, but they weren't. So I messaged him and I said, do you want some videos? And he goes, well, no, you're doing that on your own time. We can't use those. And I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. I just wanted to let you know, you can still tell both sides of the story, but I have some images. But he was aware. This isn't a big secret at that time, even that I was, and I would argue that marching in a pro-life march would be equal, if not close to matched to practicing partisan politics. So why was I not fired over that? So they're saying that it's our policy, that it's their policy. They're saying that it's very black and white, their policy, but it wasn't, and it's not, because never was I told that in my privacy of my own church, in my own hometown, where people know me, they know my middle name. I just there was no policy that I was aware of that I couldn't do that.
Mm-hmm. So it's selective policy application, okay, which is not okay. And then also too, whenever you were at that pro-life march where you were told you're doing that on your own time, you can't use that footage, they knew with substantial certainty, or should have, where you stand on the political spectrum. So there had to be something else. And this is extremely arbitrary and capricious. This is a joke. So I think there are other factors that are more petty, and they're hiding behind that policy excuse. And every time I hear policy or community or terms like that, it makes me think of all the lawyer jargon that's used with these big tech social platforms, how they try and hide behind some sort of double speak to protect liberal voices and downplay and diminish anything conservative. So I think that's a joke. I want you to know I'm very proud of you and your stance. And also too, I want to ask you this. How do you think this whole thing would have played out if you were pro-abortion and in your own time you were at abortion rallies and things of that nature? Do you think this?
Well, I don't.
Go ahead. I'm so sorry.
Sorry. No, I interrupted you. I apologize. I don't think it would be an issue. We know it wouldn't, because it's happening every day.
That is what I want to break down. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Let's take that small factoid with the shoe on the other foot analogy that you don't think, your gut instinct is you don't think they'd let you go. Why is that? That's what I want to expound on. Why?
Because nobody's turning those people in. Nobody's complaining about that. It's in Curtis, Nebraska.
Why do people complain about that then? Let's break that down. Why do people complain about being pro-life? Is that what you were implying? Complaining about being pro-life?
Right. So in Curtis, Nebraska, it's very hard to find somebody that's pro-choice. I mean, they're there. I'm not gonna, there are people, and that's fine. They can believe what they believe, but they can't tell me what I can believe, and they can't.
Exactly.
I mean, they can. They have.
It's their privilege to believe what they want, but they don't want to hear it from anyone else. And so, how come they have a louder voice? And or if they were to call and complain about a conservative, we have our livelihoods taken away.
Right. I don't know. I think it's the Satan is at war with all of us, and we're doing the best we can. And it's time we stand up, and we have to stand up for people that are being mistreated this way, and people that are,
Exactly
you
it.
know,
That's exactly
from
it.
conception. From conception. I had a woman tell me, "How dare I take women back 40 years? How dare I take away the rights of her daughters?" And I told her, I said, "Listen, honey," I said, you and I believe the same
It's
thing.
not their right to be taken. It's someone else's life,
Right.
and that's
Right.
the
But
misconception.
hear my whole thought process here. I told her, I said, we think the same thing. We both want them to have rights. The difference between you and me is I believe that your daughters, that our women, their rights begin at conception. They're forgetting that those little babies inside their mother's wombs, they're women too. You're taking their rights away. You're not even caring that you're killing them.
No, I think it has to do with the fact people don't realize how corrupt Nebraska is. They don't. People need to be reminded that there was a huge pedophile ring that was blown open by Ted Gunderson and several others. It was called the Franklin Cover-Up. I'm sure you're very aware of that. And also, too, I think it's also the fact that you're pretty. And I don't say that as a backhanded way of flattery. It's because you're a pretty pro-life woman who is involved in politics on her time off. I mean, in the workplace, your articles are still up, right? So there's no problem with performance. This is strictly a vendetta against you.
Well, that's certainly how it feels. I thought that when they were coming,
You've not provided me any other information that's substantive to say that it isn't. So, I mean, even if I didn't like you, sticking by the facts, I mean, unless someone can just hop in this meeting and prove us wrong, that is what it is. And I understand, you're at the focal point of this. You want to seem, unbiased, and I understand that. But I'm trying to put words in your mouth. Even though you didn't ask me to, I can't stand this kind of treatment. But what these people want us, these leftists, these controllers, these perpetually unhappy and never satisfied people, what they can't have is people like you and I coming together. Conversations like this being on the record. You see, once enough of these are accumulated and timestamped, this is going to go down as today's conversation. And this is all stuff that can be looked back at. And we're indexing all this, we're cataloging all of this, because there's going to be a time when there's exponentially more people like you and I, and all the people that survived in this agenda, if you will, longer than us. This agenda is coming for them. Submitting to these people.
I think there already are. I think there are already a lot of people just like you and me. I think that we're nice. I think that we're kind. I think that our voices aren't loud enough. And I think that's why people who are angry at their life for whatever reason, that's why we're hearing them, because they're screaming louder. And I think that it's time for the people that are being nice to stop being quite so nice.
Well, not only that, you have to understand too that big tech and these government agencies, they work hand in hand to amplify the voices of the narrative they want out and to suppress us. This is literally going to be posted on my 4th YouTube channel, because previous ones have all been taken down, citing community standards or a policy, a strike on their policy. You get what I'm saying? I was treated this way too, whether it be in law school or in the workplace when I worked in Houston when I was corporate. You and I cannot be squared up with logically, and we can't be fired with dignity and some sort of real reasoning that when you get approached, you already know the conversation that's about to be had. This is from left field. This is you didn't toe the party line, and a creative political, like a lawyer and an HR person got together, had to put together some jargon that is just this gray area to tell you that you're terminated, and it's a crying shame.
Yeah, it is. And thank you. I'm sad about it. I was, I loved my job. I loved it. And
I believe it. And I can relate, because I when I did oil and gas, 11-year career, I worked what's funny is working hard and doing what's right is what got me to the corporate office, and then exercising those same practices once I became white collar is what got me out, and it's just, society needs a moral overhaul, and it doesn't help when these institutions like the government or social media which are ambiguous now, they almost merge together, play hand in hand to suppress us and keep the truth from being prevailed. That, you know, they have to take control through fraud and deceit, and through, you know, grooming the next generation to be addicted to social media, or they're always having to hire behavioral psychologists and word things so ambiguously to take advantage of the kindness and common courtesy that people like you and I, the way we're raised, will display. You know, so you give them an inch and they take a mile. And that's just me trying to sum up from a 30,000 foot view. I was wrapped up in this 2 years ago. I hate seeing what you're going through now. So many, like, you're going to keep looking back on this and reprocessing and refining and refining and refining what happened, and some little thing that you didn't remember, or little thing that you didn't pay much attention to, is going to help you understand all this. Not that you haven't reflected on this enough, just as time passes, a lot of things are going to make a lot more sense. And I speak from experience, you know, my heart goes out to you. And is there anything else?
I appreciate that.
Is there anything else you'd like to clear up or put on the record or let everyone know?
I'm not sure. You did say something that kind of triggered a thought process, though, while you were talking. When you were talking about going, all the things that made you who you were, that made you attractive to be higher up, that was exactly me. I'm a hometown girl. I know the dirt roads all around here. I grew up in these parts. They usually have to ship people in to do these jobs, and I've lived here my whole life. I mean, North Platte had a news director who knew people personally in town, and that was what was attractive about me, was the fact that I knew people, and I love these people, and these people are my family and my, you know, and my friends, and I've represented the people. And that was, you know, when this job opportunity to go from an MMJ, and I have no journalistic training, by the way. I have no degree in journalism, so my degrees are totally opposite. And so when I took that job as a news director, they were aware that I had no journalism training, but they knew that I was liked. They knew that, in fact, the day I was fired, they said, yes, people love you. They knew what this was going to do to this community, what this was going to do to this community. This community, if I could say anything, North Platte, Nebraska, the people here have been phenomenal. They have been supportive. I can't walk down the street without getting hugs and crying, and people saying, we miss you so much, just in a week.
Yeah. And the news doesn't reflect the will of the people now. You see, the narrative,
no, exactly,
message is outweighing any other moral issue, you know?
Right. And the people that I brought to this, the people that I brought to the station, my co-anchor, he's been here for longer than me. I mean, he's not much older than me, but he's been at the news station for over 30 years. And another gal, she's been there longer than me also. But everybody else in this team, I brought here from across the country and was building this team and teaching them and training them. And I'm sad for them, because they're scared to even reach out and ask if I'm okay. Because if they even did that, they could potentially lose their jobs too.
You see how they have to fight their moral and just logical instincts now to keep a job? At what point, you know, you're just seeing at what point people are acquiescing when people are reaching a certain threshold. And, you know, like you and I said, people need to stand out. It's okay to speak out like this. And what we need to do is build a community, because we are on the right side of history. Not that we're perfect, or at least not that I'm perfect, but
I'm not perfect. I'm far from it.
There's certain moral thresholds that we're going to have to abandon instead of getting a paycheck at a certain point. You know, we're going to have to do what's right for us and what we feel in our heart. But you know, I really appreciate you sharing your story. And if there is nothing else you'd like to put on the record, I will close out and send you this raw copy.
I appreciate it very much. I will tell you that I'm still out reporting. I have been to every story in town, and I'm just not getting paid for it now. So okay. I'm just
start your own news with this minutia.
Well,
with
I might.
Spotlight. You know, you should start your own YouTube channel, start your own Rumble. You know, and just throw it back out. You know, when I was kicked out, when I was fired, when I've had all these things happen to me, I wanted there to be zero downtime. I was like, oh hell no, I was born to lead. I don't say that in a pompous way. I'm just saying, like, I don't feel bad. They can't impose a guilty conscience onto someone who's not guilty. You know, these people that they're trying to, you know, you're fired, you're this, you're that, you know, but like, you didn't do anything wrong. And that's not a kiss ass. So like, I mean, with this minutia, with all these people asking for, with people like me who don't even know you that are reaching out and want to hear what you have to say candidly, unedited, take all this minutia and maybe throw it back in people's court and say, you know what, why don't I host you in my show and start your own,
Yes.
Melanie Media Incorporated. I don't know. Food for thought.
No, I started a Facebook page, and you can see some of my stuff I'm starting to turn around. I had 500 followers within the first 2 days. So I think it'll be okay. I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can shamelessly plug it. It's Midwest Media by Melanie.
It sounds wonderful. Let's do this. Let me stop the recording.